All right.
Do I see people or no?
They won't show up on video, but you might see them in your sidebar. I'm not sure if you do or not, but. So we're just seeing people join in. Hello, everyone. We're here with Bonnie and Gucci. And we're just going to give people a few minutes to all kind of percolate into the room here. So hello, Carol Ann and Allie and Emily. Also some familiar faces here.
Look up so they can see you. Okay.
So for those of you that are joining us, we unfortunately aren't able to do closed captioning today. We're just putting this brief announcement up on the screen here. So if anybody is tuning in that is deaf or hard of hearing, we will be publishing the recording of this with captions to YouTube. It'll probably be tomorrow sometime up on the Tune In Tuesday page on the PADS website. So we will get that up, and we apologize. Unfortunately, we only have one person who can type fast enough to keep up with us, and she had an emergency come up and isn't able to be here today. So if anybody watching is a super speedy typer and would like to join our team of closed captioners, pop me an email at tara@pads.ca. I would love to have a couple of people in the wings so that we can not only have people for emergencies, but also just spread the work around a little bit. So I'm just going to give people instructions. If it's your first time here, at the bottom of your screen, or if you're on a mobile device, I think it's in the top right, you'll see a button or a little stack of buttons that you need to click on. And in there, you'll see a Q&A button. So that's question and answers. So I would appreciate it if you want to type comments or questions or anything like that, type it into the Q&A, not to be confused with the chat section, although I will also see the chat. It's just easier for me to keep track of which questions we've answered and which we haven't if you pop them in the Q&A session. So section. So if anybody wants to give that little section a try right now and say hello and tell us where you're tuning in from, that would be great. It looks like we've got about a dozen or so people on. We've got several more registered, but we'll give it about one more minute. So if anybody wants to type into the Q&A, oh, there we've got hello, Lise from Vancouver, and got some questions. Hello from Carol Ann in Victoria, and Terry Reese from Texas. Terry is one of our amazing puppies and flight volunteers that flies our puppies all over the countryside. So we're glad to have you here, Terry. Penny Bush is dialing in. Dorothy Sella from Vernon. Thanks everybody for joining us and for helping us test and figure out where the Q&A section is. And then we're going to get going here. So Bonnie, thank you so much for joining us. And your lovely lady Gucci is sitting there on her bench having a snooze. Oh, she heard her name. And so tell us a little bit about how it is you came to become a PADS client, and a little bit about your new lady here.
So can you hear me, everybody? Okay.
Yep.
So I got injured in an accident in '93, and after a few years, I had a person working in my research lab for me, and we were in a shopping mall together, and we saw a PADS booth, and the PADS booth, my friend said, "What? You should get a dog. You should get a. We need a dog in the lab. You need a dog. You need a dog." And she grabbed an application form. I love you too. And she put it in my backpack. And then I ignored it for quite a while, and then finally decided, well, couldn't hurt. I didn't think I needed a dog at the time, but I went for it. And so I got a dog in 2000.
Nice. And so we have a question right out of the gate here. Emily is asking, what is your favorite dog breed?
I don't think I have a favorite dog breed. Because I've had 2 labs now and a golden retriever, and I love them all for their personalities, not necessarily for their breed.
Yeah.
I have to say that Gucci's the worst shedder in the world. I really don't like that. It's been a bit of a pain, but also she's half lab and half golden retriever. So my first one was a golden retriever, the second one was a lab, and this is the best of both worlds.
Nice. And you know, it's interesting because the lab golden crosses kind of come with the frequency of shedding of a lab, but the volume of the golden retrievers, because people often think that the goldens shed more than the labradors do, and I've had both, and I would take a golden any day because twice a year they blow their coats like crazy, but the rest of the time they're quite manageable. But I think the lab golden crosses, from my experience, kind of have the worst of both worlds when it comes to the shedding stuff. So but they're also the softest dogs in the world, so I don't know.
And
Anyway,
we bath her every 2 weeks to try to stay on top of the hair. We
yeah,
find it gets the hair out, but even so, like we literally, we call her Pigpen sometimes. Pigpen from
a little cloud around her.
Disney. Yeah, because there's a big cloud around her. So
Yeah,
yeah, right, Gucci, you big shed meister.
yeah. Oh, and we've got Egan just chimed in to say that he's Karina Nichols' dad, and she remembers Gucci as Karina raised her. So he's tuning in from Steveston. She is beautiful, even when she's only showing us her backside, right? Right, Gucci?
Yeah,
So,
and Gucci got to go spend Christmas with them.
oh, nice. That's lovely.
Yeah, because we were away. I couldn't
Yeah.
take.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about how Gucci helps you. What does Gucci do other than being a lovely little pig pen at the end of a leash?
So actually, I think I'll actually answer Carol Ann's question because it
Oh,
actually
yeah,
goes
go for it.
with what they do for me. So one of the first dog, because I was much younger and stronger, I had a manual wheelchair, and so I had Phoenix. And I'm glad you remember Phoenix. He was an amazing puller. So Phoenix was an amazing pulling dog, and he loved to run. And so we would run 10 kilometers a day after work, and he could pull me. My husband clocked me at 30 kilometers an hour in my manual wheelchair. So it was a lot of fun, and I traveled a lot independent. I was much more independent, and I could travel a lot. And he pulled me all around. I work for UBC, so he pulled me all over campus. I work at the hospital, so he's always pulling me everywhere I went. He could pull me up amazing hills like in Montreal or wherever. So I really valued that aspect of Phoenix. He's also quite big, so he could hit even some of these high industrial buttons that you get for, not generally public doors, but more off the beaten track, where they're like about 6 feet off the ground. He could leap and hit a button kind of dude. He was quite the dude. And so that was quite something. And then after he passed away, my function changed a little bit, and I would switch meds and tried different things, and I started to do a little bit more walking. And so actually I wanted a stability dog. So I got Leon. And so Leon was the antithesis of Phoenix. So Phoenix was a super crazy, high energy, love me, you better love me because I'm so adorable. He was always in your face kind of dog. And then Leon, we used to call him Eeyore. It was more like, oh, well, if you want me to do something, I'll do something for you. We'll walk slowly. And so he was a great stability dog. And he was actually really good at helping me upstairs. And I spent some time in Australia. Leon actually went to Australia twice with me. And where I was staying had stairs, and he was just really awesome for that. So I really appreciated even though he was a bit of a slow-mo, he was really good for what I was trying to do, which was improve my walking. And then when Leon started to get old and passed on, I wasn't walking much anymore. I couldn't really walk that well anymore. And so then I needed a different dog again. And so that Gucci's much more at getting things, picking up things, finding things. She loves to work, even though she's been a bit of a slouch right here. She loves to work. We teach her all sorts of things. And opening the fridge door, like my arms are getting weaker, so it's really great to have somebody there to open the door. Picking up things. I drop my phone all the time, so she's getting my phone. Things like that. And just being there, a permanent fixture for me to get things from me when and giving me a sense of security, which I feel like I need as I'm getting older.
Yeah. It's nice too, I think, just to see how the dogs have changed as your needs have changed. And I think that's probably the most diverse skill set of kind of collection of dogs that I've heard, from pulling dog almost to a bracing dog. And now, so question for you, does Gucci do any pulling, or is she primarily just special skills?
No, she's not a pulling dog. I actually use something on my wheelchair called a Smart Drive. So it's
nice.
like a motor that goes underneath the axle of the chair, and it's Bluetooth to my wrist, and then so I go with that. So we actually go quite quickly, and she still likes to run. If you go to any dog park, she's still the fastest dog in the park, and we do a lot of running, but she just runs with me, and motor pulls me, she doesn't pull me. Nice. And I actually think that's a bit safer for me now as I'm getting a bit older.
Yeah. Well, and she's a little tiny thing.
She's actually quite small.
Yeah. It's hard to tell with her on the table, but yeah, she's very petite little girl. So,
Stand. There, now you can, Gucci, hello. Hi. Can you say hello?
Gucci. Hi, lady.
She does not look at a computer screen.
She's
so not a screen dog.
Puppy.
No.
Nope. All right. Well, we'll give it a try.
I do a lot of Zoom meetings, and she never cares about what's going on. She just wonders why I look at that thing.
Why are you talking to that box? So, so we've answered Emily's question. Not the first dog. So this is third Pat's dog. Thank you, Caroline. That was a great question, and super interesting answers too. So Caroline was just saying Phoenix and Bonnie were the first pulling team that I knew when I was placed with Barley. So role models for the pulling days. Yeah, it's definitely a whole different world having those pulling dogs. So tell me how it's been the last little while. How has kind of COVID affected your world or Gucci's skills or ability to kind of get out there and practice? Well, what's that been like for the two of you?
Well, I was kind of worried about her ability to keep up with her skills. The other thing is also to sit through long, boring meetings. Right, Gucci? We don't like those, do we? We don't like long, boring meetings. So every once in a while, during a Zoom meeting, I make her sit under a desk just to know what it's like again, because I sit through lots of long, boring meetings. The other thing is every day we go out to the cricket field. I go to the middle of the cricket field, and we still do all her obedience training, right? And she's the amazing dog. Everybody just watches her because she's just so on, and it's a lot of fun to show off an amazing dog as well as practice these skills. We actually keep practicing things like I don't go shopping. My husband does all the shopping now because I don't go in the show stores. But what we did was she learned how to tap. So if you take a credit card,
yeah,
and she takes it. And so I made a tap machine out of a box so that we can still practice tapping.
Amazing.
Yeah. but we've been slipping a little bit, so I'm not going to demonstrate the pathetic tapping right now because she's. But we're working on that again because I do want her to be able to tap in the store when we get back to the shops again.
Yeah. Well, that's very cool. I think you're the first tapping dog I've heard of too. Gucci.
Yeah.
Well done,
And
clever
she
girl.
got quite good. You know, we do it in certain shops when the clerks are happy with her to do it.
Yeah.
Not everybody wants to pick up the slimy credit card if it hits or goes across their side and slimes on the floor. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So but it's nice to practice skills like that. Even in Richmond now, they've actually, for some of the major intersections, they don't want you hitting like the buttons. Okay, yeah. They don't want you to hit the buttons to cross the street. So they made them all automatic, but we still practice all the buttons. And she just leaps up, hits those buttons to cross the street like you wouldn't believe. So we're still doing things like that. Or if we go by the mall, I make her hit the door buttons and things like that just to keep her practicing. Even if we don't go in, we're going to hit the button.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important to keep going. And actually, I think she's been great. Where'd she down? Down.
She's like, you put me on a Zoom call, Mom.
I know, she really doesn't like the bench. She's never sat on this bench before. So what was I gonna say? Otherwise, she's actually been great for making us go out and she gets 3 walks a day and probably we do about 8 to 10K a day. So it's keeping her in good shape. But
just trying to keep those special skills up that she uses when she's out and about.
Yeah, and keeping her out and about, I think, is really important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But she's little, but she's mighty with those leaps to hit buttons, etc. So for those of you that have just joined us, I see some new names kind of showing up in the sidebar. We're talking to our client, Bonnie, and service dog Gucci. And if you click on the Q&A button, you can type in questions, and then Bonnie or I will try to answer them for you. They can be questions about Bonnie and Gucci, or they can be questions about PADS in general. We're happy to answer them. And we apologize again. Our closed captioning, unfortunately, today the gal that types for us had an emergency come up. So we will post this video later with captions attached to it. So so how long have you had Gucci?
A year ago, 2 days ago.
Oh, so it's a gotcha day.
We had an anniversary this week.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And have you been able to kind of go into work since all of this started, or you've been at home pretty much?
No, so the week before our building was shut down, I was at a conference downtown, and then was going to go back to work, and then it all went south. And so my building is a COVID test site, or was. It's not anymore, but it was. And I couldn't go in anymore. And kind of research that I do involves people, testing on people, and we're not allowed to do that yet. Yeah. So I'm not going in. So I'm just working, and I do an awful lot on Zoom.
Yeah. And I mean, you do very cool work. Do you want to tell people a little bit about that, or is that out of the kind of the scope of this?
Well, that's okay. So I'm a biomechanist by training. So I have a PhD in biomechanics, engineering, and computer graphics. And so I work in orthopedics. And so my main interest has always been mobility and people with spinal cord injury. And so my work has looked at people, gait issues, wheelchair. So I'm actually quite interested in how to improve the function of the wheelchair and better designs for wheelchair, testing different products that have come out, looking at how efficient someone can be in a wheelchair. So improving efficiency, because the philosophy in the past was that you lose, either you use it or you lose it. And one of the things that have shifted in the rehab world is that we now preserve, we conserve to preserve. So we want to talk about um, basically how to use it, but not actually wear yourself out. So there's lots of new technologies that have come out to help people actually preserve their function over the long term. Because people with spinal cord injuries are living a lot longer than they used to. So now they're aging with a disability. So that's another story again. But I do a lot of fun research and I travel a lot. And I notice the next question is all about traveling on long flights.
Yeah.
So I've, Leon has probably been the most traveled dog you can imagine because we traveled, I mean, in Canada, I traveled a lot. We've been camped. One of the things I did with camping was, or with whatever it is that we travel with, we always take the favorite toy, the favorite stuffy. And the favorite stuffy indicates this is home. So whether we're on a plane, the stuffy comes out. Whether we're in a hotel room or in a tent or a cabin or wherever I go, we take the stuffy, and then that indicates home, and that gives the dog a sense of security and safety. And so Leon had a favorite toy, and it got sewed up and sewed up and sewed up because eventually they wear out. But he didn't ever want to let that go. So that's one moral of the story: is always have a toy that is really special to them as you're traveling, because that grounds them, so to speak. But he went as far east as Montreal. We've been to Florida, all over the States. Oh, Phoenix, went to Phoenix, Arizona. That was fun.
That's awesome.
And we even went on a cruise ship. So that was interesting. We went to Alaska with Leon. And that was a bit of a challenge because, the local cats wandered in now. We went to on a cruise ship, and so that was, you had to toilet the dog on the cruise ship, and dogs really don't like to pee and poo in a like 1 meter by 1 meter square piece of grass. That was a bit of a challenge. Eventually, we managed to do that. But on the long haul flight, like to Australia, the first time I took Leon, I had my vet teach me how to catheterize my dog so I could, empty his bladder for him without making a whole mess all over the airplane. And we did that. And then he tolerated it. And then the second time we went to Australia, he said, "Not over my dead body, are you doing that?" And he just held it. Just 16 hours on a plane. I can't believe it, but he just did it.
Crazy.
So that was a bit of quite something, because it's already hard enough for us to cope with being on a plane. But what was interesting, the funniest story on traveling on the long haul flight was, Leon was very black with his, nice little pads blue vest. And at the end of the flight, this flight attendant goes, "Oh, by the way, make sure you put that up in the overhead bin." And I was like, sure. She was just, I guess, by the end of the shift, she was kind of was done. And I thought it was so funny that she wanted me to put Leon in the overhead.
Put your duffel bag up in the overhead.
Yeah, because he kind of looked like a duffel bag. Thought it was kind of funny.
Oh, that's funny. Okay, well, hopefully Leon didn't wind up in the overhead. That would have been a sight to see.
Yeah.
And hopefully she got a good laugh when she realized it was a dog, not a duffel bag.
Yeah. She found out later. I said to one of her colleagues, I said, "By the way, your colleague just told us to put Leon in the bin. I assume you don't want to do that." And she just laughed. She was so embarrassed afterwards.
Oh my goodness, that's funny.
But it was, but acclimatizing to a new country was good. Anything like for that distance, one time it was for 5 months, one time it was for 2 months. But I wouldn't do anything shorter than 2 months because it's a lot of stress. And also with certain countries, you have to be aware of all the quarantine rules and laws and all the vaccinations and so forth. It actually costs about $800 just with the tests and vaccinations and so forth to take.
Yeah.
So it's not cheap.
I was going to say, did he not have to be quarantined, but was he excluded but as a service dog with all the tests, etc.?
He gets excluded by, he still quarantines, but they do the honor system where you get to have the dog with you, but you promise that you will not have him around any animals.
Gotcha. Okay. Nice. Okay. Well, Dorothy's just asking, do any of your research clients have PADS dogs?
Yeah.
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 Well, and
sometimes we've had Leon was buddies with a few of them, and so after we would do our research, then we'd let them have play date.
Have a little romp. Well, it's interesting, the research around kind of the mechanics, et cetera, of, assistive devices, et cetera. And an area that I'm always particularly interested in is, the devices we use with our dogs, whether it's their harnesses or different things. And, how does that kind of preserve their longevity and the wear and tear on their bodies and all that good stuff. So we'll give you a project one of these days. Okay, Bonnie?
Well, one thing about the pulling, like with Phoenix, because he pulled so much and he loved to run and he was a crazy runner, he would wear his pads down a lot. Mm-hmm. And so I actually spent a lot of time investing in different types of running shoes. And so eventually I got these, they're fairly heavy duty ones that went up to his elbow and to his knee. And then the bottoms were leather and they were Velcroed on to the legs, and then he could run. And that protected his feet much better because he wanted to run. Like, I don't know. He was crazy.
That's fantastic.
I didn't tell him to run that fast. You can't actually moderate the speed of a dog.
Yeah, they kind of have the gait that they have and the speed that they have. So you just hang on for dear life. As long as they stop when you say stop, that's the really important part.
And what I learned to do in pulling at that speed was we had I actually spent time reading stuff about sled dogs and trying to figure out cues and language. And it was kind of like a cross between riding a horse and riding and doing dog sled. So I had words, but I also had motion. So if we were running and I wanted to turn left, I pulled him towards me and he would push. He would come towards me.
Yeah.
And I could continue to move forward. But if I wanted to go the other way, he would try to run away from me if I pushed him just slightly. It was just a very minor little tweak with my arm, and he would pick up on that nuance and then ran accordingly.
That's fascinating and makes total sense. I mean, dogs are they're very visual, but they're also very tactile, right? So feeling pressure or the yield of pressure, things like that, a lot of dogs respond to really, really nicely. So that's super interesting. I haven't heard anybody describe it that way before.
Yeah.
So, well, I want to thank you both for joining us today and answering all these questions. It was definitely a really interesting interview, talking about things that we haven't actually kind of dug into before. So I really appreciate that. And thanks everybody who tuned in today and joined us, and for your questions, etc. If you have any feedback, as always, you can email communications@pads.ca. So communication with an S at the end. And we welcome your feedback. And we also invite you to go to pads.ca/TuneInTuesday and register. Next week, we're going to have our friend Nathan and his service dog Latte on. And thank you again, Bonnie. And thank you, Gucci. What just such a sweet face. Hey, pretty girl. She's like, I'm not looking at the camera. Just looking at mom. But thank you both so much. I really appreciate it. Bye, everyone.
Bye.